Hello and welcome to the Empathy Podcast. This podcast seeks to explore the minds of those who not only understand or experience empathy, but of those who wish to take action, build, and practice empathetic behavior through conscious decision and responsible lifestyle choices. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, this podcast might be just for you. So sit back, relax, and use what you were born with, empathy. All right. Hello and welcome to the Empathy Podcast. We have with us today Shawn Stratton, and he is the director of the International Vegan Film Festival. He is also an international leadership and team development consultant, professional speaker, best-selling author, and Ironman competitor. So he's doing a whole lot of stuff, which is amazing. And a little bit about the International Film Festival. It's a trailblazing event dedicated to celebrating the vegan ideal, a healthier, more compassionate, environmentally friendly lifestyle that can be achieved through the consumption of plants and animal-free alternatives. So it's an amazing event that you guys have created that I'm super excited to hear more about. But before we jump right into everything in the heat of it, I have a couple quick questions for you to get us started. Sure. So question number one is, why do you think films are so powerful in influencing others? What is it about them?
Yeah, that's a doozy question to start with. We could talk a long time about this, but they are extremely powerful, especially in the vegan movement and plant-based movement in terms of people deciding to take this avenue. I'm not sure the exact stats, but the stats are extremely high, the amount of people that are vegan that decided to go this way after watching documentaries. And
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. I changed after watching What the Health. So I can understand. Yeah, that was the first one that really sparked my interest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think films are easier. They're more consumable than, say, a book. And, it's easier to watch What the Health than read the China Study cover to cover. But so I think that's the ease of it. The obviously distribution of films now, it's so much easier to watch good quality films on all the streaming services than, say, even 10 years ago.
That's a great point. That's a really good point, is that it is easier to just see things in streaming and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's more accessibility. You remember, like 15 years ago, we had to go to a theater to watch a movie and then wait a couple of years or maybe a year till it came out on VHS or DVD.
And you weren't going to see these kind of movies. Like these movies, Like these aren't blockbuster movies that we're talking about.
That's true. Yeah. They might get to an independent theater somewhere and, probably die a slow death at those places. But so I think definitely accessibility is a big thing. And then I think just, films in general have a real way of tugging at people's heartstrings and making that emotional connection and showing evidence live and not live, but it's right in front of you with beautiful visuals and compelling stories. So I think those things combined, obviously with the accessibility, it makes it very powerful. I think for people to become educated on the benefits of this lifestyle. And then there's so many more films that are coming out now, I think because of the filmmaking capabilities are a lot more accessible to people. You don't need a huge production crew and $1 million to make a feature film anymore. And so I think that helps as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, even someone like me that doesn't have experience, like I can make a little film on my phone. Like it won't be like super high production, but you could, the quality of a single camera on our phone is so, like, you see the little films that they're making on the iPhones. I don't know if you've seen, like, I've seen ads like commercials where they do like vertical and they said filmed on iPhone or whatever. You just look at it, you're like, it's amazing. It's amazing how well you could do so many things with even just an iPhone. Yeah. So that's so true. All right. So my next question is, how can others start making their own films? Like, what are some ways that maybe people can get started? Like what are some tips that you have?
Yeah, I'm not a filmmaker myself, so I'm more of a consumer of films like you. But there's so many different ways. Obviously, people are filming films on iPhones. I'm sure there's a film festival for iPhone movies out there. I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past me. But I think there's a lot of tutorials out there. There's a lot of tutorial type websites, not just YouTube, but more focused ones. I think some professional filmmakers are doing tutorials online that are easy. Obviously, there's the film schools and things like that to go the professional side, but I think even online tutorials. And I think the biggest thing is just starting and trying it out and starting short. I think people that maybe want to get into filmmaking have this, vision that they need to produce a feature film, a 90-minute length film. And, that takes a massive amount of work and production to have a decent quality feature film. So start with a 5-minute film and then build your way up and start small. I think also it's important. I did a panel discussion recently with a bunch of vegan themed filmmakers, documentarian, and one of the things they said was, just start small and reach out to mentors. Like, you'll be surprised the people that get in touch with you. And a lot of times the filmmakers are not, the celebrity people that are hard to get in touch with. A lot of times these filmmakers live pretty obscure lives and are happy to help out aspiring filmmakers. So, when there's a film that you really like, check out the credits and find out who was involved with that film. And maybe you don't touch base with the director, but maybe you find someone that was a cameraman on that film, or you may be a producer, or so check those things out and seek mentors and go in that direction. I'm a big fan of kind of mentorship.
That's so true. And some people really think that they have to be the actor, or they have to be the main person in the film. And some people aren't comfortable with that. And that's totally okay. I remember I was watching a quick story about some film that came out, and one of the actors was talking about how they love the director. They love the director so much. And they said that the director would come out and show them how to act, like how he wanted the scene to be. And he said that if he thought that he was such an amazing actor that he should have played the part in the film, but that wasn't his thing. He loved the directing. He loved being behind the scenes. He loved not being in the spotlight. And even though he had the skills and talent and probably could have been an amazing actor, it was just the way that he wanted to communicate it to everyone else. Or to all the actors, that they just love that kind of style as well. So I think that that's also a place for some people. Some people that don't want to be in front, can just, take the footage of things, and add pieces from elsewhere. And you're right, you can create really compelling or interesting stories that can be short in 5 minutes and starting small. Yeah, that's really true. My first one was like a very short one or whatever, like when I was making, yeah.
Right, cool. Think of the Super Bowl commercials. Like they're sometimes they're 30 seconds or a minute, but they've taken millions to make, but they're compelling story in a minute. Yeah, you're so right. Absolutely. All right. So my next question is, how can people get tickets to this year's festival? Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll talk more about the festival in a minute, but just to quickly, tickets are going to go up on sale this weekend. So starting, not sure when this is going to be out, but basically starting the 13th of September. You can get tickets on our website, or there'll be links on our website, which is theivff.com, which is the internationalfilmfestival.com, theivff.com. And all the links and information will be there. We have, I believe it's 13 different blocks of films that are accessible. And so a block could be one feature film, or it could be 4 or 5 shorter films, or maybe a 50-minute film with a 20-minute short film. So each block is approximately 80 to 90 minutes in length. And the tickets are $10. There's going to be passes for $45 that you can have for the whole festival and watch them all. And the festival goes October 10th to the 17th. So all the films will be available on the 7th, and then you have the week to consume them. And we'll also be doing a bunch of Q&As with the filmmakers and some people in the films, things like that we'll be adding. So definitely stay tuned and sign up for our information sign-up sheet on the website, the ivff.com, and all the information will be there. That's awesome. So how many people are coming to this festival? How many films are you showing? We're showing 28 films. Wow. That's amazing. 28 films, and I think it's about 15 hours worth of films. Wow. That's or so more. Awesome. No, more than that probably. Yeah, that does sound like more. Yeah. So I think of those 28, 6 are features. So there's a bunch of short ones there. And sometimes the features are really, more beneficial. Sometimes the short ones are, and sometimes, they're all really good. They've been curated. I think we had over 40 films submitted. So we've whittled them down to these 28. Nice. That's so amazing. All right, cool. So let's get to know you a little bit more, Shawn. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, well, I'm currently living in Ottawa, Canada, the nation's capital, where our government hangs out. And I've been here with my family for about 3 years. I've got my wife and 3 young daughters that are 2, 7, and 9. And they just started back to school this week after the longest spring break of history. So as a dad who works from home, I am thrilled to have them back in school. I love them to bits, but boy, it's hard to get work done when you're homeschooling. And so it's been a challenging few months, but I'm glad we're through it. Although I think we're a long way through this pandemic, so you never know when school's going to be shut down. But they're there for now, and we're happy with that. But I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland, in the east coast of Canada. It's the far east, the most easterly point in North America.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
St. John's, and had a great upbringing there with 2 brothers, really involved in athletics and sports and travel. And I was really involved in the outdoors, in the Boy Scouts, things like that. I went on to actually have a career as a professional camper. I was a guide and an outdoor educator for 15 years.
Wow.
I led wilderness expeditions around the world, focused on leadership development, mostly with an American nonprofit called the National Outdoor Leadership School, and led month-long sea kayaking, backpacking, mountaineering, whitewater canoeing expeditions around the world. A lot of time in Alaska and the Yukon, a lot of time in Mexico and Baja, near you, and some time in India and Australia and all over the place. So that was a great job and a great career. It was living the dream. So I did that for about 15 years, and that was, I guess, a different chapter in my life, and slowly moved out of that into professional speaking and corporate leadership training. And so I took a lot of leadership experience I had on the expeditions. I got a master's in leadership, and then focused on the corporate leadership training and team building, which I still do today, and keynote speaking at conferences, sharing some of the lessons and stories from those expeditions. And in 2013, I published my first book called Teams on the Edge, and that's stories and lessons from the expeditions with a team building leadership themes. And and then we were moving around a fair bit. My wife was, she's a physician and was in training, so a lot of times you are moving. We were living in Calgary at the time, in Alberta, for 2 years, and then we moved to England for a year, and then we moved to Ottawa. And so that's kind of been the last 6 years of moving around with the family. And now we're here in Ottawa. And I started the festival idea came. I can get into that in a bit more, but it came about 3 years ago. I kind of had the idea of how can I get involved in the plant-based community, and what can I bring, and what skills and I guess experiences that I've had that I can use in the plant-based space. And the idea for the festival sprung to mind.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I think it's so cool to have like something so outdoorsy and experience in so much outdoors like that, because so many people have jobs indoors or jobs inside, and getting the opportunity to work outside. I was just outside for the last about 6 months. I was doing some outdoor work, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the air. I loved the plants. I loved the dirt. I loved, just being outside and connecting with nature, and it felt so much more natural, obviously, and it felt more like at home. And it was, I think that's a really awesome experience and a great journey. Everyone, we should check out that book. Anyone listening, I definitely want to check that one out. So what would you say in your mind as you transitioned into 2015, what are some of the reasons that maybe you switched your lifestyle into more plant-based, into the vegan lifestyle?
I was kind of inspired, I guess, from my wife. It's all her fault. As always, we've always been, my wife and I are both endurance athletes, and we've both kind of ate a fairly clean diet, as we were thinking at the time anyway. And I was never vegetarian, but on my expeditions, we don't really take any meat or very little. And so, I'd regularly go months at a time without eating meat, and never wasn't a big deal. And I think one day my wife, she was training for a marathon at the time and struggling with some injuries, and I heard on a podcast that she heard that, often vegan athletes recover quicker from injuries. And she was kind of like, what can I do for my hamstring? And like heard this, was like, okay, that's it. I'm willing to try it to see if this can help with this injury. And so she signed up for a Colleen Patrick Goodrow 30-day challenge. And she went cold turkey overnight. We had meat one day, and then the next day she went on this challenge, and she hasn't looked back in 5 years. And at the time I was like, oh, okay, just supportive of her. Like, she didn't ask me if I wanted to do it or anything. It was kind of her thing. And I do most of the cooking at home. So I was like, okay, I'll support you with this. But, maybe when I eat out, I'll probably eat meat or whatever I want, and didn't give it much thought. And so I started cooking that way. And then we got a few cookbooks. And I guess it took me about 3 months to fully come on board. After about a month, I was like, yeah, this kind of makes sense. And I was watching some documentaries as well, and reading some books and kind of educating myself on the whole space. And the more I learned, the more it just made sense. And so about 3 months later, I kind of jumped on board and went fully vegan. And here we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your wife going first and then influencing you, and then connecting with her and having to mesh that relationship together is an interesting challenge as well. I interviewed some people recently, and they had a similar situation, but it was opposite, where the man went vegan first, right, the husband, and then the wife followed later in a very similar journey as you. And it was really interesting to see. And one of the biggest things that she appreciated was that support that you were talking about, and just saying, he would say like, hey, maybe you want to try this, and then leave it alone for like a month, and but slowly and surely, and she was the cook at the time as well. So she had to figure out how are they gonna cook things. And he's like, don't worry, I'll cook my own stuff, kind of thing, and so he was able to take that lead, which relieved her of that pressure, right? Which is a good scenario, right? The ideal scenario would be, one partner goes, the other one learns a little bit, and then they both kind of go and they grow together and they build together. Sure. Obviously that's the perfect situation. And unfortunately there are situations where people go through challenges where, one person changes, the other person doesn't want to, and the other person is like really committed, and really about it, and it can pull them apart. What do you think are some things that help strengthen you guys to stay together?
Yeah, I could see that. And I do know people that are in challenging situations like that when their spouse is not vegan and maybe not as supportive either. I don't know. I was just kind of open to it. I've been pretty flexible. I wouldn't call myself a foodie by any stretch, so I'm not super particular. I think once I, saw the documentaries and I think, she was the one probably suggesting them at the time, and I was okay. And, I think for me at the time, it was forks over knives. That just made sense. And I would say, I like the phrase, come for the health, stay for the animals. And I'd say that definitely relied for us. That was definitely the case. We were health focused at the beginning. And then once we learned about the animals and the impact on the environment, like it all kind of equaled out. But I just think, I was happy to be supportive, and once I became educated, it just made sense. And so I think if you can slowly educate or try to encourage your spouse to become educated on the benefits of this, try to slide those in wherever you can. But at the same time, you have to know that everybody's on their own journey. And this is definitely one thing you can't force people to do. And people are all going to do it at their own time. And I say the ones that stick to it longest are the ones that come to it on their own. Anybody that's doing it for someone else or some ulterior motive it's probably not going to last.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. So what are some benefits that maybe you and your wife received? You were talking about having problems with some health or some recovery. What are some maybe benefits that you guys had received?
Yeah, it's funny because we haven't seen like massive benefits because we were very healthy and active before we had done Ironman triathlons, and my wife's a former Olympian, and so we're very active and healthy. And I think some of the digestion, probably some constipation, things like that, probably helped out. But overall, it wasn't like, we had the gout and all of a sudden the gout went away, or we had, diabetes and it went away because we were living a healthy lifestyle. But I think overall we just felt generally healthy. For me, my run times, I received some personal best, my 10-kilometer, my 10-mile run times. I hit personal best at age 42 and 43, wow. Which, and then it's not like I'm a new runner. I've been running since I was 16, and to hit personal best in those ages, I know it didn't hurt. I can't say that this is the reason why, but it definitely didn't hurt and probably helped for sure. with those times. And then, it's just an overall light feeling, I think, just mentally, even knowing that you're not causing any of this destruction, and you're living a life of compassion.
There is real science though behind the recovery though. And the recovery, and you were talking about like helping with
inflammation for sure.
With the injury with the hamstring and stuff like that, and being able to recover a little bit quicker from that. So did she make that switch, and did it help the hamstring, would you say?
I'm not quite sure if it helped the hamstring at that time. I think she probably needed some more strength training and some physiotherapy and things like that. But if that's what it took to get us going, like, so be it.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting how everyone learns, from a different way, and everyone has a different route, and like you say, came for the health, stay for the animals. And I've always been an advocate that there's lots of different reasons why you might make that change, or you might get that spark, or you might get that interest. But yeah, there is definitely, a true, main reason of I mean, the main definition of veganism is just essentially for the animals, right? Even though there might be many reasons you make that change, Right. So yeah, that's really cool. So tell me more about this film festival, and tell me a little bit more about some of the things that you're doing to kind of give back. Like, I remember you had said that you were at a point where you wanted to give back, and you wanted to help others. You wanted to contribute. You wanted to use your skills and some of the things that you've learned to help the growth of the movement and sort of that sort of stuff. And I feel like I was very similar. I was 6 months in to when I went vegan. I was like, man, I really want to help. And I was in the same kind of boat. Like, what can I do? Like, how can I help? Like, what can I share? What information do I have, and what skills do I have? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It was probably a little over 3 years ago. And that's when I really started to decide, like, how can I get involved? How can potentially start a business, start a nonprofit, do something to get involved. I've always been involved in leadership. I've always been entrepreneurial, and wanting to get involved. And the idea of events really interested me. I love team building. I love community. I'm an extrovert. I love being around people, and went to a few veg fests and thought, well, maybe I could get involved in veg fests. And so I looked into that really seriously, and was thinking about taking over the Ottawa Veg Fest here, and at the time, but it was just going to be, at the time, for my life and family and commitments, it was just going to be too much. At that time, I couldn't take it on. And so I thought, what else can I do? And there's a film festival that I've seen that has a world tour, the Banff Mountain Film Festival. It comes out of Banff, Alberta, and it's all about mountain adventure films. And I've been watching that for 20 years, all over the place, wherever I've lived. And so I had that model in my head, and I was like, wow, I wonder if there's a vegan film festival world tour that I could bring to Ottawa and bring to our community here. And I did some research, and lo and behold, I found that there were no vegan film festivals in the world, let alone a world tour. How are there no vegan film festivals when there's so many like powerful documentaries out there that are, vegan themed? And so I just kept doing some more research, and then I started talking to a few influencers in our area, and just kind of bounced the ideas, like, what do you guys think about a vegan themed film festival? And all the feedback seemed very positive, and so I said, well, let's try it. Why not us? Not coming from a film background, but from an organizing background, and just a willingness to learn and jump into it and figure it out as we go. And that was 2017, kind of the fall of 2017, and away we went into this adventure. And I always wanted it to be a world tour as well. And so the original vision is to have the festival here in Ottawa each year, each October, and then take kind of a best of the best, a 2-hour screening of kind of the best short films, and then work with local hosts around the world for them to host screenings in theaters in their communities, and work like that. The Banff Mountain Film Festival, the one that I've kind of modeled it after, last year, before pre-COVID, I believe they had 1,000 screenings in 300 cities around the world. And so I've got that model to look up to. I'm like, well, why not us? Not every city in the world at this point pretty much has a vegan, vegetarian community. We're everywhere. And so I just need to tap into those and try to spread the love and get it around the world. And, then COVID comes along, and it makes you pivot a little bit. And, there's some things that are disappointing. We're not going to have in-theater events this year, and we had to close down a few of our world tours last year. But at the same time, I think there's tremendous opportunity that's come by in terms of us bringing the festival online for the first time ever and having a complete virtual event. And now we're not just opened up to theater audiences and select communities, we're opened up to the world. and we're excited to bring a global audience to the festival this year.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and I think that you might be onto something big, because you're absolutely right with how many films that we have and the growth in that category and the ease and the way that we communicate and the way that everything's becoming so digital, that it does seem like kind of like a perfect storm in a way, kind of like, everything lining up to be in the right time. In the films that you share, are they all new films that maybe people haven't seen potentially, that you're trying to kind of promote maybe for the first time, or do you have some older ones as well within your lineup?
Yeah, most of them are new films. Some of them have been out for a year or so. Generally, our stipulations, they have to be made in the last 3 years. And so there'll definitely be some that people haven't seen before. There'll be a few out there that people have probably come across or maybe heard the title of, but maybe haven't seen it. And then there's probably a couple that, people have seen, but a lot of these are obscure. A lot of the smaller ones are maybe newer or independent filmmakers. I believe they're just about all independent filmmakers that maybe don't have the reach of the Netflix and the streaming services. And that's another big part of why I wanted to do the festival, is actually have an avenue for these filmmakers to display their work. Yeah, exactly. Because if we've got maybe a dozen or so vegan themed films on Netflix, that's probably just scratching the surface of the films that are out there. It's probably, maybe 1 to 10% of the films that are out there that are vegan themed. And so let's have a platform for all those other ones, because many of them just go on YouTube or Vimeo and get a few views here and there, and then eventually get taken down or fade into the background when, they need a platform to be shown around the world.
So if I'm a filmmaker and I'm making films and I just made a film, right? How do I come to you, and how do I get it in the festival? Let's say if I wanted to. Yeah,
absolutely. Our kind of submissions open in January, and they go kind of from January to the end of June. And there's a submission tab on our website, and you just go in through that submission tab, and it directs you to our Film Freeway account. Film Freeway is kind of the clearinghouse that we use to host our films. That's where the films come in, and the judges go in and see the films. It's a site that works with a lot of film festivals, and you do all that through our website. It's super easy. Just upload your film there and the details of your film, and away you go. And I want to note too that last year we added a photo essay contest, and so we have that as well. And that photo essay contest just ended a couple weeks ago, and the judging is taking place now. But yeah, if you're not into filmmaking and you're into photos, which it's a lot easier to take photos than films, it's open to anybody. And we even actually have a youth category in the photo essay contest. So look for those coming up at the festival too. We'll have the winners announced there and show some of the top photos that have come out.
Wow, that's awesome. And so what kind of photos are people taking? Like what are some examples of like?
It's a photo essay contest, so people are supposed to submit 3 to 5 photos that tell a story. And I wanted that because it's all about storytelling, and it takes a bit more thought to compose an essay in that realm. You can, when you submit, you can put, I think, about 300 words or so to describe it, but mostly, the images describe the story. And I would say probably 80% or more of the photos that we're getting in the contest are wildlife or animal focused, instead of the other categories are health and wellness, health, nutrition, environmental protection, animal welfare, and then lifestyle. I would say by far most are kind of behind the scenes of maybe the slaughterhouses or the animal industry. Some are very heart-wrenching photos. Some are very beautiful photos. The quality is very good. But some are professional photographers, some are amateur photographers. So it's open to all. And yeah, very powerful. You can go on our website now and see the winners from last year's festival there.
Yeah, so how did the turnout come for last year's festival? How did it go?
Yeah, so last year's was in the theater in Ottawa, and it was great. Like we had about just under 40 films submitted last year from 13 countries around the world. I think over 65% of the directors were female-directed films, which was really exciting. I know the Oscars have their issues with all of the trying to get more diversity within their filmmakers, and so it was great to see a very high female population when it's generally a male-dominated industry. I think the filmmaking industry, and yeah, we had a great turnout. We probably had maybe 150, 200 people in a small theater here in Ottawa. It's growing. What I want, 500 people? Yes. What I want, 1,000? Yes. But it's growing. We did it kind of on a Saturday evening. We had a bit of an expo beforehand, so we had a bunch of vendors from local restaurants, things like that, which was great. It was a good community event. People came an hour before, kind of had dinner and things like that in the lobby of the theater, and then we jumped right into the into the films.
For how soon you've done it and how recently it's been created, I think it's amazing already what you've been able to accomplish in the amount of time that you have. I mean, having 200 people and having 50 plus films, submitted, I think is already amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely tremendous.
Yeah, and we had about 15 world tour hosting lined up for last year. We did 6 or 7, and then had to cancel the rest of them. So that's a number that's growing, and yeah, I'd like to get 100 to 200 in the next few years as the word gets out and COVID, is in the rearview mirror hopefully soon.
One of the bright sides of being locked down and stuff like this, and even for myself included, is it forces you to be more creative with the tools that we have, with all our digital stuff and our cameras and our laptops and our phones, and figuring out ways that we can still connect, and especially for someone like you that's an extrovert, right? That's very hard. I'm more of an introvert, even though people don't think that because I'm very out there. But what happens is that we were forced to kind of figure out how to make things happen. How do we get work done through the computer? How do we get communication done through the computer? How do we do these screenings or movies through all the computer? And we've, don't get me wrong, in the past 20 years and stuff, and since technology has really taken off in this category, we've come a long way. But I think this pandemic time has either forced us to really reconsider a lot of the things that we do, for sure, but also forced us to maybe use some of the things that are there, and also created other people creating new ideas based on this situation that we're in. So I think that the virtual thing and being able to have the virtual world tour,
mm-hmm.
I think that is something that's should set it off the edge, hopefully, because then obviously you're environmentally friendly.
Right.
How many planes, if you're traveling, let's say, to there, how many planes do people need to take to get there, and all the travel? And that's really an interesting thing that I know that we had they called it a green conference, and one of the things that I was doing. And I thought that was really smart, because it did make sense. It was more green doing the virtual one, because it was a place that everyone was going to fly to, like a conference kind of thing,
right.
And to do it all virtual, and it worked really well. And after attending that, I thought, why doesn't everybody just do this? Why isn't this the standard? This should be the standard, and traveling should be the emergency. I'll travel if I have to, which I think we have it backwards. So maybe this will flip some of those things and could help conserve, hopefully, from that standpoint. But even just getting the communication out there, just saying, hey, I have a message, or I have something I really want to share. I have something that I think that this is great for people to see. And you're going to have people, obviously, a lot of people that want to. They I really want to. I want to be part of this, or I want to see this, or I want to watch this. And I love films, or I love what you're doing. And so being able to bring that right to they could be laying in their bed and just watching on their phone or whatever. I think that's more entertaining and accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I kind of envision it doing some online type of work maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, and it just all got sped up really quick, and we've been scrambling to figure out the technology and see what's best for our uses. And we've learned a lot over the last few months, for sure, getting this set up. And we're really excited that it is online now, and I think it will stay. I definitely want to bring the theater experience back, because I believe in that community aspect, and it's great to get people out of their homes and having some community events around the world. But there's a lot of people in a lot of corners of the world that can't get out to a local theater that's going to be hosting it, and so now they can take part as well. So
it'd be simultaneously, right? You would have the theater event, and that would be kind of maybe broadcast or whatever, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it would look probably next year once we bring back a theater event, but it could be simultaneously. We could, live cast the awards ceremony. There's lots of different things obviously we can do, but we look forward to getting back in the theaters, but I think kind of the overall, we can show a lot more films online for a much cheaper price than bringing everybody in here.
Yeah, so currently the one that we're talking about and the one that's going to be displayed is all online, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
October 10th to the 17th. It's going to be
Yeah.
all online exclusively.
Yep.
And
So
the other part with that online
Oh, good.
aspect is that, we're going to plan to do a bunch of Q&As, probably some panel discussions with these filmmakers. All the filmmakers are going to be doing their own introductions of their films. They're sending us videos of that, which is awesome. Instead of, me or an MC getting up and reading off a script and introducing each film, we get to actually, the filmmaker gets to do it, from their own home, which is really neat. And then, a few select films will have Q&As after with the filmmakers and maybe some of the key figures in the films, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that's a really cool feature too. And I think that you're absolutely right. Like, I think people would like to hear from the filmmakers and the directors about their film. Like, let's say, imagine James Cameron or something talking about Avatar, and explaining what Avatar means to him and why is it important. It's going to be totally different, that perspective, from any other person probably explaining Avatar. They might say, oh, the visual effects are nice. Oh, this is really cool. Oh, it's going to be a great story. It's very entertaining, right? Whereas the filmmaker, right, the person that created, be like, hey, the underlining tone of this movie is, the deeper meaning, what inspired me to create this, so it's definitely way more interesting and deeper.
Yeah, and we're working with a partner we're trying to develop some type of chat room experience that we might have kind of nightly throughout the festival, that people can join in and have discussions, because a lot of these vegan themed films, like the total nature of them, breed discussions after. Once you see some of these films, some of them are pretty intense, and some really interesting topics and really controversial topics that lend themselves well for discussion. You don't want to just watch it and turn off the light and go to bed because your head is spinning with ideas or, excitement or frustration or whatever. And so we're trying to create an online chat room that people can have these conversations and carry them on after the film.
That's so true. Like, imagine, like, let's say What the Health. You watch What the Health. Like, immediately after that, I was like, my head was spinning. I was like, What happened? Like, why doesn't everybody know this? Like, why is this not shared everywhere? And I was confused, actually. And one of the biggest feelings that I felt was betrayal, and almost like lied to, and by so many people, but like not a malicious lie, not like they were trying to hurt me. Like, I was betrayed by lies by people that didn't even know that these were lies, kind of thing. It was like kind of way deeper than that. And so to have a discussion after that with people that maybe know what they're talking about, or to help, because then the other question a lot of people have, especially for first time or first learning, is what next? Like, okay, even the ones that get it, like so many times, like let's say you watch something that's horrific, animal footage or whatever, it's really bad, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I don't want to contribute to this. Oftentimes the question is, well, where do I start? Like, what do I eat? Like, how do I even do this? If I want to. And so being able to get those answers while they're fresh, because it goes away. You're right. Like, let's say I watch something really bad and I'm like, man, that's horrible. I want to make a change. And then go to sleep, forget about it, like as if it didn't happen, which is, what a lot of people are used to, when they're watching. If I watch a movie late at night or something, like, I might not plan for a conversation right afterwards, but it is nice to have those conversations afterwards. That's very true.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really looking forward to having that, and hopefully it goes well, the chat room box, the experience.
Yeah, super cool. So what are some other things that maybe, I know that fills your plate up for sure, but what are maybe some other things that you do to be active or help out others or help out animals?
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of giving back and what we do. And, I think for me, the festival is kind of my form of activism. I think just being vegan, everybody is an activist if you're vegan, just by your choices alone. And some people feel that you need to go to the protest to be an activist, but you don't necessarily need to that. And protests, have a time and place and serve a good purpose. And some people are more apt to do those, and other people do other things. And I think, for me, this is kind of my part in bringing, the vegan message to the world. And I'm really happy with that and proud of that. And, other for me in terms of, sharing the message, it's just role modeling. And I think that's, the best thing anybody can do is just role model a good lifestyle. And I think eventually people start to catch on and start seeing that, what you're eating is a lot healthier, or, your choices are doing well for the planet, and you're role modeling that you can live a healthy, happy lifestyle with a young family and eat a vegan diet, and without, waving the flag or shoving it down their throat or constantly talking about it. And so that's kind of where I come from in terms of trying to spread the message.
Yeah, for sure. Be the change that you want to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like with the kids? Was there some challenges with the kids and the way that they're eating as well?
Yeah. Fortunately, our kids became vegan pretty young. Well, our third child has been vegan since birth, but the other two I think they were 3 and 5 when we when we became vegan. Maybe 2 and 4 even. And so it was easier for them because they didn't really know any different. And they've embraced it. They've done really well, especially the older two. They know what's going on. And I don't show them all the films, but I show them kind of the age appropriate films. And my 9-year-old is like, her goal in life these days is to own a farm sanctuary someday. When she plays with her stuffed animals and her toys and her Barbies or whatever up in her bedroom, she's always like making sanctuaries. We've gone to visit a few, so she's familiar with them. And anybody that has kids that are on the fence or they're having struggles with them becoming vegan or joining them on their you on your journey, take them to a farm sanctuary. Like, it's the best thing you can do with kids. That really connects with them when you teach them a little bit about maybe where these came from, maybe a little bit of, maybe don't have to go into all the details of maybe the abusive backgrounds that they came from, or the dairy farm, or saving this horse from on the way to the slaughterhouse, things like that. But give them age appropriate information, and they make such great connections at these sanctuaries. And throughout North America, there's sanctuaries all over. Most major cities would have a sanctuary within an hour's drive. A farmed animal sanctuary within an hour's drive of their city. Yeah, so I'd really recommend that. And then there's other challenges for sure. Birthday parties, friends events, sleepovers, things like that. Most of our friends' families know that we're vegan and are fairly accommodating. Sometimes for birthday parties, we'll pick up a cupcake at one of the vegan bakeries, and they can bring that cupcake instead of having the birthday cake. There's so many different ways to get around it. And then at the end of the day, if, they go and they have a vegetarian piece of pizza, or they have a bit of birthday cake or a bit of ice cream, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It's, I don't want the stress to be 100% vegan greater than the health benefits, or greater than the health detracting of eating a non-vegan diet. And so, I expect to get in our teenager years, they'll probably do some exploration and try some things, but they'll always know that, they're eating vegan at home. And once they get out on their own and grow older, like they'll make their own choices. And all we can do is provide a supportive environment and make sure that they know kind of the reasons behind our choices.
Yeah. I like the animal sanctuary thing. And like they say, like, once you meet them, you can't eat them. Kind of thing. Yeah, like that definitely helps. But I was gonna say, did you notice any behavioral changes within the kids between eating you were very healthy in general. I'm sure the kids were probably healthy even before. But one of the things that I've heard when talking about this topic within families that have kids and they made a switch, and now the kids are learning some of the information that they're learning, and they're making switches as well. And almost everything that you said is pretty much the same, that it's very easy for them. It's very easy to transition. They like it. They love the animals. Like, they get it. It's pretty common sense. A lot of this stuff, it's pretty logical. But one of the things that I noticed that I thought was really interesting was some of the behavior changes. I've had several people that had kids, and just by switching up some of the things that they're eating, they saw positive changes in behavior, and attitude and performance in school. I'm not saying that happens all across the board, but did you experience anything?
I wouldn't say again, they were like 2 and 4 or 3 and 5 when they switched. That's pretty
too early.
It's pretty young, but they definitely have a lot of compassion in their life right now, probably more than their average friend or child, in terms of just compassion to animals. It's pretty funny when they're around people that are eating meat, or my parents are visiting and they might bring in a chicken in the house, which I don't really like, but I'd rather them visit than not visit. And they'll look at that and they'll point out, they're like, so that's the wing of a chicken? And that's the leg of a chicken? And you're going to eat that? They're just like really honest, genuine, inquisitive questions. And, which, in 30 or 50 years, I hope everybody's asking those questions, when they see a meat eater, because I think they're going to be very limited. So that's kind of funny. But, I think behavior-wise, I think just overall compassion, they probably have a higher level of compassion than their average cohort at the same age.
Yeah, some compassion, empathy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely, those are things like I believe people are born with.
Yeah. And I think especially towards animals, I tell them when people ask, why are you vegan? I said, you can just give an easy answer. Like, I don't want to hurt animals. That's as simple as you need to do. Yeah. And they've had a bunch of friends that have inquired and that I think are thinking about it or have done it even at a young age. Every now and then I'll get a call from a parent saying like their daughter wants to try vegan. Like, where do they start? So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting seeing the impacts, and I love the innocence of kids and their inquisitive questions, and they're just honest, like kind of no filters. Like, they just don't have a filter sometimes, because they haven't learned the cultural norm or the cultural society of saying, hey, you need a filter for these things, or these certain things you filter and you have to say certain ways. So it's really fascinating to see them grow up. But that's cool. That's great. I know that that's definitely a hot topic for some people when they talk about kids, because the question always goes right to health. Is kids, which is very important, and I'm very mindful of that because I share a lot of stuff on TikTok, and there's a lot of kids there. And so I get a lot of questions from people and stuff like that. And one of the things that I experience is the parents, sometimes they'll reach out to me and they'll say, hey, what can I do? Like the same thing that you said, how to help. And I always try to, because I don't have kids myself, so I try to really think, if I was a parent, what would be my most important thing of my kid? And it'd probably be safety, for sure. Like, I want them to be safe and healthy. So I was like, how do I portray this in a way that this is safe and this is healthy, for you? Because people always go right to, oh, I read this article in this newspaper of this vegan, this vegan parent that killed their child, or their child got really sick, and they're like, well, what were they eating? I always say, well, what the heck were they eating? They're like, potato milk. And I'm like, I've never even heard of potato milk. So it's just like these crazy, it's
always extreme
kind of like, what, who does that kind of things. But I do think that that's important to clarify for the kids, because that, and the parents as well, of course. I mean, if you have kids, you probably have parents as well that are taking care of the kids, and so that's usually the number one thing. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a few challenges in school with, they're probably school about 350 kids at elementary school, and they're probably the only vegan kids in the school. There may be a couple others. And so they get some questions and things like that. And then Pizza Fridays is always a challenge and that, but they're getting through it. And I think they kind of like being the oddball out a little bit, especially with such a good, wholehearted, compassionate movement that they're part of. It's not like they're stuck out because they have some disease that they're really embarrassed about or something. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely true. And it's even in Canada, I noticed that they took off the dairy in the nutrition. And so our Canada Food Guide.
That must have helped a lot, right?
It is helping. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they, in school, they learned the Canada Food Guide. And last year, one of my daughters was learning about it, and she was thrilled to go in and tell everybody about the changes. But yeah, it used to be milk and dairy used to be a category, and now it's like off the whole chart completely. I think it's like a side bubble as like a suggestion, maybe a small portion of this. And then instead of the meat kind of portion of the chart, they have the protein portion. And
it's a lot of beans and lentils and
it's probably like 80% beans and lentils and whatnot. And there's I think 20% of it is like in the picture anyway is meat. But it's massive. And the government of Canada this year has been giving out some massive loans to some of the pea production companies that supply Beyond Burger or Beyond Beef and Beyond Meat and some of the other companies. So I think the Canada government is slowly getting behind it. Obviously they're still have massive subsidies for the animal agriculture industry that we'd like to see them remove, but they're slowly getting behind the movement as well.
Yeah, it's great to see a country that is being progressive towards that. And looking at the science, like I watched some of the US one, when the US dietary guidelines, and I watched some of the speakers that were there to explain their case, like why should we make these changes? And they were talking to the panel that makes the decisions. And you had a wide range of, mixed of, plant-based nutritionists and plant-based doctors. And you had, people from the industry, like the egg industry and the dairy industry and that sort of stuff. And they're all kind of stating their case. and stuff like that. But it's just so fascinating that it almost just seems like a show in the U.S. It seems like the systems are kind of in place at the top, and there's certain things that, and they're not ready to change any of those things. And it's the problem. I think the biggest problem in the U.S. is when you have the USDA dietary guidelines. They're responsible for the health of the country, right? And saying, this is what's healthy, but they're also responsible for the industry making money. So they have two responsibilities that actually contradict each other. And so which always wins in America, the one that always wins is always the money. It's always the money. So it's capitalist society. So if you're going to say, well, health, I'm responsible for health and I'm responsible for the money. And those are both my responsibilities. The money is going to win. And so what the U.S. needs to do is separate those two somehow. Somehow separate, who's focused on health and who's focused on, industry making money. And I think that'll help a lot. And then balancing the subsidies as well. If you just have a balanced approach, I think that'll make a lot of positive changes if you just have that. And it'll be a fair trade. It'll be like, okay, if you go out of business because you ran out of business, well, you're out of business, just like any other business. There isn't any kind of special protection. The next one steps up. The next business, comes in line, whatever that may be. Because like people are fear that like, okay, let's say the largest meat producer goes out of business in the U.S. Let's just, for example. First of all, that's not probably likely to happen. Let's just say like the 10th largest goes out of business. They're going to be fine. You know what I mean? We're going to be fine. We're still going to get our food. We're still probably going to have enough food. It's not like that goes out of business and then all the food goes out. But I think a lot of the protection is centered around pandemics or depressions or huge economic collapses, which is like in the U.S., the Farm Bill, for example, is the one that protects a lot of the industries from huge collapses. But that also keeps them in business forever, essentially. So kind of those are some of the challenges that I think that we face, but I'm not sure on Canada if they face some of those same challenges. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's similar. I think this food guide that came out last year is the kind of the first food guide that didn't have any industry input. It was inputted by scientists and experts. It wasn't input by the lobbyists. And it sounds like from the little I know about the U.S., it's very lobbyist focused, or it has been up until now. I'm not sure. Do you know when is the new kind of guidelines supposed to come out? It should be soon, isn't it?
It is soon. I don't know exactly when, but you're right. It is really soon. I'm not sure the exact time on that.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a bit of an election just to try to get into the guidelines. It's like the way people are doing their pitches, but hopefully they take the view of science and not industry or lobbyists.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. It's hard when our leadership doesn't really believe in science, so that makes it tough to have something scientific happen.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, but I definitely hope so, and I think that it's great to see the changes that you guys are making, and I think a lot of people are proud, and I think it's a good stepping stone to look towards for the future. And I think it's a really big step. And I can only imagine, like, if I was in Canada and I was responsible, I ran a dairy industry company or cheese making company or whatever, that seeing that is not a health food anymore, and not even on the health guidelines, could be very dramatic. I can only imagine, because almost all the dairy farmers that I've talked to personally, like a direct conversation, every single one of them believes it's healthy. All of them. I've never heard one dairy farmer say, you know what, I know it's not really that healthy for people and people probably don't need it, but I'm trying to make money. And that's fine. I mean, because it's your business and you've got to do what you got to do. But I think they really believe that it is healthy and that people do need it, and they're doing a really good service for the community. I think in their heart, a lot of them believe that. So it must be very dramatic.
Yeah, I think people can only make decisions based on their education, and I think everybody's not equally educated in all the benefits of a plant-based diet, but you got to think if a lot of dairy farmers, especially small ones, have grown up in it, and they're not drinking the Kool-Aid, they're drinking the milk, and I'm sure they firmly believe in it and what they're doing, and I'm sure they're very good people as well, but probably missing some side of the education that we are fortunate to have been discovered.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was amazing talking to you. Is there anything else that maybe you want to share that you didn't share already?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Just, I hope folks can check out the festival coming up October 10th to the 17th. And if you got any questions or feedback for us, we're happy to hear it. But we'll have the tickets up on our website, www.theiVFF.com. But go there, check it out, and we look forward to seeing you at the festival.
Yeah, that's so great. I can't wait, and I can't wait for everyone to get a chance to see this. We'll be sharing as soon as possible, and take care.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Empathy Podcast. I appreciate you guys for listening. I hope you guys took away something and you can apply it in your day-to-day lives. Also, I can see that there's a lot of you listening that aren't subscribed, so please subscribe. Make sure you leave a review at Apple Podcasts. That helps people find my podcast so that more people can listen.